So follow me.
I like to do a lot of art journaling. In fact, I try to do it a little bit every day, and I have shown in another one of my videos this page that I did that's lift your face towards the sun. And it was just so much fun to create. I thought maybe I would recreate it on camera so that you can see my process and maybe you can try it too. Okay, I have another Strathmore 400 series journal that I'm starting. It is like this, so it is a landscape journal, but I like to do them long. Put it up this way and do the whole both sides long. So what I'm starting to do on this one is to draw out my flowers and faces. And then I decided I would do it on camera so that you could watch, because you might want to try it too. And then I'll show you how I use my favorite art supplies, my Caran Neocolor II crayons and tombow markers. So what I like to do for these flowers is to just start with a circle, which is going to be the center of your flower. And then I put in my marks like I would for doing a face, where you put one down the middle, one across center, then you divide that, and then divide that. And there are your marks for doing a face. And then I put in some petals. So in this one, I'm trying to make all of the flowers different. The last time I did all sunflowers. And this time I'm doing every flower different, just for fun. So I'm going to draw in some petals, and this time I'm making curved petals. And I like to come across, instead of going all the way around the flower, for balance, I put petals out to all four sides, like that. And then I come back and fill it in. So if you put a petal in between here, and you put a petal in between here, and they're just rough sketched at first. Then if you put a petal in between here, you're ending up with some balance, and then you can come back in and draw your behind petals, the petals that are underneath. Zoom out a little bit more, and I'll try to make my lines a little darker. I'm light-handed, but you can't see it on camera, so I'll go heavier. So I'm drawing my petals in between the ones that I just drew, and you kind of make them look like they go behind each other. It just gives them kind of more of a realistic look. It's whimsical, but it still looks more realistic than if you just drew a petal, petal, petal next to each other. When they're kind of underlapping each other, they look more realistic. So see, there you go. And then I go back in and do the face. So you're going to put your eyes, and your nose. You can do any kind of nose you want to. And some eyebrows. I have eyebrows because we're going for the full face. And the iris. And the pupils. And then this is the center line, is the mouth. Okay, so there you've got a face. Then I draw in the stem, and it's going to go behind this flower. I like to take my hand when I'm drawing something behind something. Let me zoom out. Okay, so I'm drawing this stem, and it's going to come behind this flower. I draw it, and then when it hits where that flower is, I just keep my hand anchored to the page, lift my pencil, but continue along like you were still drawing even though you're not putting pencil to paper. And then where it reconnects, put it back down on the paper. That way it's behind when where you can't see it, it's straight. So you end up with that stem behind the flower. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so let's go up in this corner and do one more. Let me zoom out a little bit. Up in this top corner needs a flower, so I think I'll do another one that's kind of like this. I have room to put 2 more, so I think I'm going to do 2 more and have there be 5 flowers. Let's put one up here. And maybe even a half one. We'll try that. Okay, so you see my circles? And then I divide my circles in pies quartered, and then a half, 1 and a half. Okay, so there's my lines for the faces. Now I'm going to go and do my petals, and I think I'm going to do the same type of flower as this one. I'm going to put up here, and it just had shorter, rounder petals. And again, I do my quarter technique here where I draw a petal at each point, then one in between, then one in between, and then a petal behind each petal. There's my basic flower. Now I'm going to do another face. I'd like to try to make my faces look different. In fact, this one I think I'll do with closed eyes. So I'm going to just do that bottom half and a little scoopy nose. And just a little whimsical grin on that one. Okay, so I have a closed face, and then on this one, I think I'm going to do a side. I'm going to erase that. And do this one like it's turned sideways a little. And that's how you'd go side. It's like a 3/4. And these are just rough. Okay, so there's that face, 3/4. And then I think I'm going to do some little short round petals on this one. Don't know what kind of flower that would be, but that's okay because they're just whimsical. Do my little process of quarter it, then put them in between. And then the ones that go behind. It's just fun, and it's just an art journal, so there's no right or wrong. That's kind of cute. And then I think it needs another row, so I'm going to put another row of petals behind. Okay, so once you get it sketched out, just lightly sketched, then what I do is I sit and take my time, and I use a, oh, that's cute, I like it. That's cute. Okay. I like to use, and I need to put my stems in too, but then I like to go in and take a Tombow mono drawing pen in an 01, and I ink the whole drawing. So I draw in my lines and draw in my petals and do my faces and ink it in. And once it's all drawn and it's all inked, then I'll come back and I'll do my Neocolor and Tombow to add color to it. So I'm going to go ahead and ink this. It's going to take me probably an hour to 2 hours, and I don't want to do that on camera. So when it's done, I'll just come back and show it to you inked. Okay, so now I've got my design inked. There are my flowers, and I put the words, "Don't wilt, stand tall." So now I'm going to go ahead and start my process for coloring them. So I like to use Caran Neocolor II crayons, and these are the colors I most use for faces. I use apricot, salmon, orangish yellow, salmon rose, rose, light lemon yellow, raw sienna, Sahara yellow, and flesh. So those are the colors that I use for faces. I think I have another video out about faces. And so I may use some or all of these in this, but those are the ones that I use most. And I'm going to start on this face. So let me zoom in. And what I like to do, I usually do mine tipping directly with a water brush. I use a water brush, and I like to tip directly from the crayon. You can do it either on the flat end and pick up color, or you can do it on the other end that you sharpen. And I pick up color, and I like to go in and start adding a layer of color. And that is going to be my base layer, is always with a flesh, and I just do a very light layer. And that's just to put some color down so it's not white paper, and it gives you something to build onto. So I just kind of go around and use my water brush and add a simple one coat layer of flesh. Now I start building it up. So you always want to know which side is your shadow side. And on this particular one, the shadow is on this side. So that's going to be darker. So I always go in there and make that darker because it's on the shadow, in shadow. There's always a little part up here that I do at the top, and then right here above the eyebrow. That just gives a little bit of shape. And then in the crease of the eyelids, and a little bit on this side and under, but not as heavy as on the other side. And there's your basic color that I lay down. Then I start adding my next color. I think I'm going to use orangish yellow next. Pick some up and just start layering it. You just kind of add and layer, add and layer. Add a little more color in there where it's shaded. Right here in the corner needs a little. And I'm going to do this to all the faces. Pretty much the same, just adding some color and adding some shading. There's always a little bit more color around the bottom of the nose and right up above the lip. Right here in the crease. Let's do a little more on this side in the crease. And see how it's just starting to take some shape. So you may or may not have used Caran d'Ache Neocolor crayons. The Neocolor II are the water soluble crayons by Caran d'Ache, and you can color with them. If you haven't watched my other video, I'll just show you real quick that you can actually color right on the paper and then add water. You can color right on the paper. And then add water. And the water will blend out that color that you just laid down. That is one way of using them. I prefer the tipping method, and by that I mean you tip with your water brush or your paintbrush with water right off of the crayon itself and pick up color and then apply it. For me, if you play around with them, you'll see that doing it this way, you get a much smoother application. It's not as grainy, you don't see, especially on this paper is watercolor paper, so it's got some tooth to it. And so if I color with it and then add water, you can still kind of see those lines. And I prefer to just do it with your brush, tip the crayon, and then add it to the paper like a watercolor. And it's the same concept as watercolor painting, the regular watercolor paintings. You want to start with your lightest color and lay down your lightest color first and let it kind of dry, and then go to your next color and just build up those colors. So you start with light and go light to dark. Okay, see how I'm just going around, and wherever that face is in shadow, I'm laying down some color. It's going to be darker on this side. So that's how you start to get some depth to it. So let's work on this one and do the same thing one more time. On faces, I lay down a complete, I like to color the whole thing with just a thin layer of the flesh. And then after that, after I let that dry, then I come back in and then I start building up my shadows and tones. So put that color down like that, it's just solid, and then let it dry. Okay, so on my faces here, I've done my single layer of flesh color, and then I like to come back in and pick up some more and go in and create the shading. So you're going to shade it around the edge of that nose, under the eye, just a little, on the top above the eyelid crease. So I just come in and add in my soft shading. See, and the more you add, the better it gets. So I'm going to go ahead and work on these, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like when the faces are all shaded in. And a lot of my followers and viewers have mentioned that they don't like time-lapse videos because they make them dizzy. It does cause some people to have migraine headaches and dizziness. And so what I do is I show the technique, and if I'm going to be repeating something over and over again, I'll go ahead and stop the video, finish what I'm doing, come back and show you what it looks like after I've already shown you the technique, and then move on to the next thing. And that's just for the sake of my viewers. So I don't ever do time lapse, so that's why I'm stopping and starting. Okay, now I want to show that on my next layer, you can, for the second layer, I did the first layer in flesh and I let it dry, and then I added a second layer of flesh just to start adding in some shading. And now I'm going in with apricot, and I'm picking up some apricot and I'm going in and even accentuating those shadow parts. So the parts that are farthest away from you or in a crease are going to be darker. The parts that are closer, like on the top of an eyebrow, like when people do their makeup, they put a highlighter right there, and that's because that part of the brow sticks out the farthest on the face. They put a lighter color of eyeshadow and it accentuates that is forward. So same with shading on coloring. Anything that's forward, you're going to do really light. Like the tip of the nose is going to be very, very light because the tip of the nose is far out on the face. The creases on the eyelids are far back and in a crease, so they're going to be darker. So I take a second color now. I've moved from flesh to an apricot, and I'm going in and I'm adding some more shading. So where there's shading under the nose, around the edge of the nose, that little crease underneath the edge of the nose, the part that's in shadow, like right here, where you know this place, this one the sun is coming this way, so I'm putting some shadow here. So now I'm adding some apricot to it just to give it some more depth. And you blend it in. Make sure your brush has a little bit of water on it, not sopping wet, and go in some circular motions and blend it out to blend those colors together. So where it looked patchy before, it's now starting to look smooth, and it's starting to look really layered. So it's starting to take shape and look like a face because it's got things that are moved forward and things that are moved back. The forehead is light because a forehead is forward. These edges here are going to be a little bit darker because it's where a face is round and it's going around the edge of the face, so you're going to make that edge a little bit darker. And the more you do, this is what's going to make it into a sphere. It's going to make it more round and more realistic. It's not realism, we're just doing a cute, whimsical thing, but I still like them to look like it really would if it were a face. So again, here's my next one up here. It's got 2 layers of flesh color, and see how it's kind of patchy and not blended well. I leave it like that until I add the next color, which is the apricot. Same thing, go in here, pick up some apricot, start adding it, and go in my little circular motions with my brush just damp and blend out that second color. And when you do that, it takes care of all those patchy spots and makes beautiful skin tone. So that's my process, that's how I do it, and I'm sharing it with you, so hopefully you can try this and see if you like it. I love, as you know, my Caran Neocolor crayons. They're just way too fun to play with like this, and they blend so beautifully that I do a lot with watercolors, and I really enjoy watercolors, but I still feel like these Neocolors are just so blendable and so smooth. You get such a smooth blended transition that I just enjoy them. They're my favorite art supply. So I also use the ones by Lyra, and I like them too, but Caran are just my favorites. And I'm not affiliated with Caran. Maybe someday I will be. I've contacted them. I'd love to be affiliated with them because I love the product so much. So that would be pretty cool. But anyway, I'm just showing you what I do and how I build up a face on my little flowers here, my little sunflowers, or these aren't sunflowers. This field of flowers is all different. There were sunflowers in my last book, but here I go, just tipping it off the crayon with my water brush, adding some more water when I need it, and then coming in and blending it in. Going under that patch under the nose, putting that little crease part right under the lip, making that lip stick out. So just continue to play. If you're playing along and doing this in your art journal, just continue to play. Work on your shading. Go around that edge with a little bit darker. Blend it out. When you blend it out with your little circles, it becomes nice and smooth, and keep adding colors, keep layering, and see what you can create. And when I finish my page of faces, I'll come back and show you what they look like. Another little thing that I do, another little trick, is when I first lay down color like this, while it's still wet, I take the tip of my finger and I also blend it out with my finger. So I'll lay down a little bit of color and it's wet on the paper. I don't rub hard because you don't want to rub your paper to where it gets, you know, frayed and bally, but I just take my finger and when I go out like this, and it just makes a little bit of added texture on the page. So in places where you want it to be textured, I do a little bit of blending with my fingertip. Okay, here's my faces, and they're coming along. I'm sure I will continue to play around with the shading. I always seem to do that. And for their cheeks and all the pink colors that you see, I used a salmon pink. And so I just did my same technique, just blending in the pink. Now I'm going to take a tombow dual brush pen. This technique I actually saw, I've learned it from Tamara Lepore, but I absolutely love it. And she takes a tombow, and it's in a kind of a darker color of a pink, and she goes up on the top lip and she fills that in like that. Get that to focus in. There you go. She fills in that top part. Let me zoom in a little bit more, and then I take my water brush and I drag that color down to the bottom lip. So you kind of just wet that top lip and drag it down, and look what you end up with. I love that. It's so cute. Okay, so we've done light in the middle, darker around the edge. Take my damp brush and just lightly blend it out. Easy peasy, cute eyes. So I'm going to go ahead and do all my eyes on all my flowers, and we'll come back and work on the petals. Okay, so there are my cute flowers with the green eyes. Love it. It's turning out pretty cute. Okay, and as I've told you guys, this is my therapy, is making art, and being able to share these techniques with you and teach you how to do what I do, show you what I do, so maybe it inspires you, is an even better part of my therapy. Because when I'm making these videos and I'm playing and creating and doing something fun like this and talking and sharing it with you, I'm not thinking about how I feel physically or what I'm going through that day. I'm just focusing on this, and I'm not thinking about anything else. So now my petals, I'm doing the same thing. I'm taking a super light. It's a super light yellow. It is what color? Sahara yellow. It's really pale. And I'm going to go in and just put in my base layer. So just like I built up that face, I'm going to build up the petals in the same manner. Put a base layer of a light color. It doesn't have to be yellow. I'm going to do these flowers all differently, but the technique is the same. So for the first layer on the petals, you're going to just do a light color, pick your lightest color, and fill them in all like this with your light shade. And then when you have them all filled in, then we're going to come back and build them up and make them look more realistic. And I went right over my pencil lines. I didn't even erase them. It's my art journal, it's my process, and that's kind of what I do. And if you're more of one of those artists that you don't like pencil lines to show and you like it to be super, super perfect, then you'd want to erase those before you start this process. But for me, I feel as I blend and add colors, I don't even see them, so it doesn't matter. And this is my art journal. It's just for play. It's just for fun. It's just to spend some time creating and doing something that when you're done, you feel really good about what you did, what you created. So I'm not looking for perfection. I'm just making an art journal page. So okay, so now that I've got that base layer down, I'm going back in with the same color, my Sahara yellow, and I'm making some brush strokes down kind of off center and to one side. Hopefully you can see that. I'm just adding in some brush strokes here and adding in some color to that yellow behind, to that petal behind. Those of course are going to be a little bit darker because they're behind. So don't forget to make them a little bit darker. So with this second coat of the same color, make those ones that are behind a little bit darker. So the second layer, Caran d'Ache Neocolor II are so cool because as you layer one on top of the other, it just keeps building up. It builds up a layer of color that you can end up with really, really vibrant dark colors the more layers that you put on it. So I like to take that same color and go to the layer, the petal behind, and put in those little shadows where a petal touches another petal or where it's behind, like that. See how the ones behind are darker? Okay, and then just keep playing around and adding in your cast shadows on top, your creases. I don't color the whole entire thing because you want to keep some of that really light yellow. You want it to be different values, so that's why I'm only doing like 1/4 to 3/4 of it with this second layer of each petal. Hopefully that makes sense. If you went over and you colored that whole petal solid another color, you're going to just be building up a solid color. It's going to be a solid looking petal, and you don't want that. You want it to have little hues and values like that, little creases and turns. So you'd use a second color. Now you're going to pick up a third color, and I'm going to go ahead and use a yellowish orange as my third color. And I'm going to come in here and start adding some more shading. So see how you're just putting some more shading down, and this is a step darker than that really light pale yellow. So I'm going to shade along that edge, and I'm going to go down into the flower a little bit, into the petal a little bit, put some color down along the edge and pull it down, go along the edge and pull it down in the middle, go in that spot behind and into that shadow. So I'm putting the color right along the edge of the face, right along the center of the flower, and then I'm pulling the color into the petal. Let me hold it up a little closer. Okay. Putting it along the edge like this, kind of patting it in, and then pulling it in, pulling it out. See that? Let's do another one. Placing the color at the edge and then pulling it out. And then look at how those petals are starting to come to life. They're starting to look like they're deeper in, around behind the face, and coming out and folding out to the sun. Okay, let me turn this. I turn my artwork too. I don't always do it just straight on. Turn it so it's, your hand is not stretching across your work is working for you. So I turn that, and now I'm gonna, oops, hard to do this on camera. I'm doing it along the edge, and then I'm pulling it out. And I'm gonna leave that little line that I just made by accident because I like it. It just adds interest. So go along the edge, drop in that next darker color, and pull it out. It's almost like a flick, so flick it. And now this petal is behind, so we're going to go a little darker in there. Like that. The spots where a petal intersects another petal and is underneath, you want to make that darker on that edge. Because it's shadow. It's a shadow being cast by that leaf, by that petal. I think here's a good spot right here for that, to show that. Right here, this petal would be casting a shadow. And this one would cast a shadow. So that's what I'm doing for my petals on my flower. And you can do them in any color that you want. It's building it up from lighter to darker and adding in a second color. This one had a little bit of orange. The first one was just pure yellow. And now I think I'm gonna leave it, let that dry, because I'm gonna come back and do some really vibrant yellow just to really make it pop. For my vibrant colors, I'm gonna use my Ecoline pens. They're water-based as well. And they're very, very bright and vibrant. And what I like to do with them is to come in and go to those spots that are behind and put some of that bright, vibrant color back there in the creases. Okay, see how that just, again, made some more depth in there. Now I'm going to take this one and I'm going to go along that edge again. This isn't really very vibrant color. It's okay though. I'm going to go in along that face and I'm just kind of making a little texture along that face. Just using some scribbly strokes, kind of flicking it out here and there. And I'll show you when this is all in what this does. This is kind of framing out that face. Oh, so cute. So see what that did? I just framed it out a little bit and made it pop. It makes that center look really round, really like a good face. I love that. Now I'm going to use a little bit brighter of a Caran d'Ache. This is the yellow, and it's a lot brighter than that light yellow that we used in the beginning. So I'm going to come in and add some color, some pop of color, and now I'm going the other direction. I'm going from the tips. I'm starting at the tips of each petal with this really vibrant yellow, and I'm doing the same thing that I just did at the base. I'm going around in kind of a scrubby kind of motion, and I'm putting in some really vibrant yellow, and I'm just scrubbing it in and just dragging it up just a touch around the edges. I don't want to make it flat, and I don't want to color the whole thing in solid. I want that pale yellow to still show through and to give it some depth and make it look three-dimensional, make these leaves and these petals really come to life. And the pale yellow was a nice base, but it's not bright enough. I want this flower to be bright and pretty and vibrant. So that's what I'm doing, going around those edges and add in some really bright yellow. Some pops of yellow. Okay. It's really coming along. Looks nice. For right now, I'm going to stop with that, and I'm going to show you a little bit on the leaves and stems. And then I will come back and finish this. Actually, I'll show you the background, what I do on the background. And then I'll show you off camera. I'll do it off camera and come back and show you what the finished product looks like. Okay, same as before. I'm taking a light olive green Caran d'Ache because I'm starting with my lightest color, and I'm going in here and adding some light green to this leaf and stem of the flower. Okay. Just throwing some color on there. A light color. And then I'm going to go back in my dark color. And I'm going to put in some shadows. Where the leaves or petals of the flower are going to cast a shadow. And just build it up. You build it up and build up your layers. It looks very watercolor painting like. And that's what I do for my leaves. For my background, I like to use light blue. And I just go in and I put it down an initial layer of Caran d'Ache in light blue everywhere. So you it takes some time. But you just use your water brush and you tip off the crayon and you just come behind and just start coloring in this background. And I let it be light and dark wherever it just happens to be, because I don't want it one flat color. So if it's got a lot of pigment like right there, I don't worry about it. I leave it and just let it go down on the page the way it goes down on the page. It looks really nice and it makes a really pretty background. And I'm going to do the whole page like that behind all these flowers. And then I'm going to add some more brightness behind it, but I'll show you that afterwards. Okay, so here's my background done. The first layer in blue, and like I was showing you, it's not a solid blue. I made it light and dark and splotchy in places on purpose. I love that look. Let me zoom out a little to show you. It's really cute. It's starting to come to life. Now I'm going to work on my flowers and my petals and my leaves, and I'm going to do them each in a different color. I think I'm going to do like pinks and peaches and different colors. And you know, art journaling, that's the other thing. For me, art journaling, when you're doing an art journal page, it's very personal to you. So it's messages to yourself. It's messages about things that are going on in your life. Like my words on here are don't wilt, stand tall. That's a message to myself about don't get defeated. You know, things are difficult with health issues and things going on in my world right now. And I don't want to get defeated. So I'm reminding myself, don't wilt. Be a flower, stand tall. So the faces too are showing different expressions, and it may be expressions about what you're feeling. So, you know, this one kind of looks like maybe a little bit disgusted, or this one is sleepy and got some fatigue going on. This one's in deep thought, maybe even meditating. This one looks angry and grumpy, so it's looking away. It doesn't want to see the other people or flowers around. And the one at the bottom is surprised and excited. So you can use it to express yourself. Use it for your expressions. Make the faces express what you're feeling and what you're going through. Make the words on your page, the journaling words, be about what you're going through. But then make the art fun. Make it bright and vibrant. Or if you're in a dark place, make it dark. Make it dreary. Do it however you're feeling and use it as art therapy. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up and come back and show you what I like to do on the background after the flowers are done. Another thing on petals, let me show you. This petal I've got leaning over like this, and I don't have any veins on it. I just have the center vein going down the center, because what I like to do is fill it in with a solid color, my light color first. Let me do all of these. This one's got a downturned petal, so I'll show you with that too. Instead of drawing in those veins with a pen and making them stark black, I like to come back in and I like to do those veins with my color, with my Caran d'Ache color and my tip of my brush. So like in this one, I'm going to come in with some dark. It's still a little wet, but because it's petals, I don't mind. I kind of like that bleed out effect. It's like watercolor bleed out. But I'm going to go in here and do those veins. Might be a little wet for that. Might have to let your flowers, your leaf dry better. But you get the gist. And I kind of like that bleed out, and then I can go back in and refine it after it dries. But see how I'm using my Neocolor paint to make those veins. Instead of just drawing them on with a pen. Okay. I'm going to show you how I did this orange petals on that flower. So I'm going to do the same thing to this one here. I'm using two colors of tombow, a lighter and a darker one. And I'm going to go in here, and the light one I'm going to put all underneath the petals that are underneath, that are behind the front petals, the back petals. I'm putting this on the back. Like that. So any petal that's behind another one. Then I'm going to take this darker one, and I'm going to put it like this, all around the edge of the flower. And up a little ways into the top petals. Not being very careful or specific, but just like that. And now I'm going to take my water brush, and I'm going to just come down to the edge, not all the way to the back. And like I do when I do the eyes, and I put down two colors and then I go back and I pull some color out, or the lips, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just bringing that color from where I stopped coloring down to the end of the petal. So what you end up with is a very watercolor painterly looking flower that's darker in the center and lighter to the outside of those petals. You're basically just putting down, tombow is a water soluble ink, and you're putting down that ink, but then you're taking your water and you're just blending out and dragging out that ink. You're activating it with the water and dragging it out to the end. If I went over all this in the middle, I'd distort that beautiful dark color, so I'm barely touching it. I'm just coming up to it, but not going all the way in. And I just think the result is just way too cool, so I wanted to show. How pretty that is and how easy it is to do. And then it kind of just, the water makes it just sort of bleed. Look at that. That is just way too pretty. I love it. Really pretty. Okay, it's coming along. My flowers are starting to look kind of fun and funky. My leaves are getting close to being done. And now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add some highlight to these words so they pop a little bit more. And I'm going to use a tombow pen. So I'm going to just you have to pick a right side or a left side that you're going to make those shadows on. And I'm going to pick left side. So I'm going to go down the left side of every part of the letter. And just bring that out. Brighten it up. And I wanted it to be blue because of my blue sky. And I'm not worried about making it perfect. But now I can read those words better. They were kind of hiding, so now that bright blue on one side of the letter kind of makes those words pop. Just like that. See, so I've got my don't wilt, and then down here my stand tall, and I'll go ahead and finish that. And now one of my very favorite parts is to take my Posca pens in a black and a white, and I like to add all those little touches. Everything that you kind of find which sides of the face has your shadow side, and on that side I'm going to make darker lines with my Posca pens. So what I mean by that is like the left side of the stems, I'm gonna hit those and make them darker. The left side of a leaf coming down, I'm going to go around that. And what it's going to do is it's just going to make it pop. It's going to make it stand out. It'll make it more dimensional. It'll raise those up and make them stand out. But I don't want to trace around the entire leaf and around the entire stem. I'm just adding lines on left sides of things. So like on the left sides of petals, I'm going to go in and just put some black lines, and I'm not doing it everywhere, just in a few places to make it pop. Now around the faces you can do things like dots, and these Posca pens are great for this. Flowers, especially sunflowers, but the middle parts of flowers usually have texture to them, bumps, and they're usually very precise consecutive dots. But if you go around your face and you add some dots in all different sizes, trick to a Posca is you don't push down on them at all. You get them started, get it flowing, and then you just light-handed draw with them and the paint will flow perfectly. You'll never have a leak, you'll never have to restart it. If you push down, it'll flood it with paint, it'll not work, it'll get paint all over the outside of it, they don't work well, and people complain about Poscas. I've never had a problem, but it's because you need to get it started and then just be light-handed. So here's my little dots around that face. How cute is that? And then going in and adding a couple of those black lines in. Cute, I like it. And then with your white, you can add little highlights in too, like a highlight at the end of the nose, a little white highlight, and a line that goes up. Pat it with your finger, do a little circle on the forehead, pat it out with your finger, and you'll get that really good highlight to make it pop. Okay, so on that end of that nose, you want to put a little bit of white and a little line going up, and a little bit on the forehead, and then just pat, pat, pat with your finger. A little highlight on the brow bones. You can put a little highlight on the cheeks. And you pat it out and you get these really nice little highlights. So those are my fun things. I like to go back and put in the little details and highlights and just play around with it. I need to go back in and put in some eyelashes. I like to make my eyebrows the color, whatever color you made those petals, are really the colors that you should go back in and color those eyebrows. See that? That just adds right to it. But they need eyelashes and little frou-frou things, so I'm going to go in and add in my dark highlights to the left, my white highlights, and finish this up. Okay, so we're just about done here. I love how it turned out. I put some cute little dots on their faces. I did my letters darker. Look at how cute those faces turned out. Cute. Cute, cute, cute. And there's my words. So I've got my, let me zoom out, my don't wilt, stand tall. That's what it looks like zoomed out. Cute. So what I like to do, the very last thing that I like to do is I get a super bright blue Tombow marker and I go in and right where the petals, right in between the petals, I like to put a darker blue, but it's bright, and blend it out and pull it out with my water brush like this. And I'm going to go all the way around those flowers and do that. I love how it makes those flowers pop forward. It makes them stand out. It just looks really fun. Let me show you that in my other one. So here's my other journal that I did before, and see how I did that behind each one of the flowers, and look how it makes those flowers just really pop. So that's what I'm going to do to this one, and that's how I achieved that. So again, just taking that Tombow and going into a section of the flowers like this, putting just a tiny bit, and then taking that water brush and pulling that out. And I'm not going all the way to where you put it, I'm just going to the front tip of it because I want to keep that real vibrant in between, and then have that blue just to pull out, and then just blend it in with your little background you did with Caran d'Ache. Just blend it in, make those flowers pop out. They'll each have a nice blue border behind them. So that's it. I hope this inspired you. I hope you enjoyed this project. It was tons of fun, and I enjoyed sharing with you my process on doing flower faces, shading, using Caran d'Ache Neocolors, and then a couple extra things like Tombow markers and some Posca pens. So I appreciate you stopping by, and go have some fun creating something beautiful, because art soothes the heart.